Hey everybody, it's Taria from Columbus Can't Wait. Today we have a very special episode. One that is honestly really hard to kind of be here talking to her because we interviewed her a couple years ago in regards to the same subject. And here we are today talking to her about essentially the same thing. And that person that I'm talking about is Miss Tamala Payne, mother of Casey Goodson. As many of you probably know, Casey was murdered by a Franklin County sheriff's deputy in December of 2020. And now we are in 2024, and we are actually on the eve of that deputy's trial, Jason Meade. That trial begins on January 31st, and we wanted to bring Tamala in to catch up with her about how all of this, how Casey's murder has affected her life, has affected the life of her family. We wanted to talk to her about how, she has been forced to navigate a political landscape that she didn't know much about before all of this happened, and had to be thrown in and learn, and kind of how she has experienced that. And we're also talking to her about how the community can support the family and support Casey's memory during this trial and after. So, yeah, definitely a really special episode for me. I'm so grateful for Tamala coming back in and having a conversation with us. And I hope that you all learn a lot as we have a chance to um, have a conversation with her. And I also want to let y'all know there's conversations about murder, there's conversations about grief, conversations about parenthood. So I just want to let you know a little bit about kind of what you're going to hear during this. So take care of yourselves.
I really don't even care about him. I'm used to seeing him. Yeah, I've sat in the courtroom with him now several times. I think I've really just come to the realization it wasn't really him, it's the evil that lurks inside of him. So it's the lies. It's the lies they tell. It's the games they play to try to make him look like such a great person or to downplay his character flaws. And we all know he's an evil man. And so it's the lies, more or less, being in the courtroom with him. I really could care less about him. I don't, if you asked me in the beginning, I hated him. But I had to come to the realization like hate's not going to get me where I want to be or where it's not going to get the outcome that I'm looking for. So to hate him is only hindering me. So I refuse to let him have that much power over me. So I don't hate him. I don't feel one way or another towards him. I just want him held accountable for what he did to Casey.
You feel indifferent towards him. You
Yeah.
just want,
I just
yeah,
want him held
you
accountable.
want what your son deserves
Hmm.
and what your family deserves. How did you feel like the first time that you were actually in the same room with him? Like the first, do you remember
I
how that
lost it.
felt?
I looked up. We were at the federal building. It's when he was first charged with the murder, and he was trying to get the case moved to federal court because we know if he would have gotten it moved, then it would have dropped the murder charges because you cannot be charged with murder in the federal court. So
Okay.
there was a hearing
Okay.
for that, and we were at the federal court, and I had my head down speaking with my attorney, and I looked up, and he was in my face. I lost it. Like I just, it was so many mixed emotions. I had to leave out the courtroom, and I had got like so hot that I was starting to sweat. I literally laid my face on the window of the courthouse to catch that cold air because I was hot.
Yeah.
But That was the first time I had ever encountered him since he murdered Casey. So
Yeah. I always think about when people have situations that put them in the path of somebody that they never even knew. Like, I remember you were telling me that you were just having a regular day and that you and Casey had talked the day that he was murdered, and it was just a normal day. And then a normal day went from, I mean, I was telling you before we started recording that, like, I asked you if you needed a tissue. And I feel really emotional today because you were there at the beginning of when we started to do this show. Um, and part of the reasons why I felt compelled to do this show was because of some of the police violence issues that we were having in Columbus. And that show, our show started in August 2020. Casey was murdered in December 2020. And you came on our show, and it's 2024. And we're just now coming to trial. And I know that, like, if I don't know, it's just something that stirs in me emotionally as a mother. I mean, I get mad if people look at justice
the wrong way.
the wrong way. I want to immediately know, you know, what's the problem? Cause she's my baby.
Right.
And in those moments, I can always like comfort her, right? But like, you don't have, all you have is like, I know I told you last time I saw you that Casey is still with us, but if you could give anything to hug Casey, I'm sure that you would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was really, really missing him earlier. Just with him, I used to joke with him like, when you turn 30, boy, I'm going to be 46. I'm going to be an old lady when you turn 30. And he would be turning 27. And like next Tuesday.
Yeah.
He's forever 23.
And you are a young mom, so I don't know. Y'all could have went to the, you know, anywhere and celebrated together because you weren't going you weren't going to be old. 46 is not old. So you still would have been a young mom.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like those are all the things that I feel like were taken from you. And so I do feel like really sad and even just like a little bit ashamed that of like all of us that like this is where we are, that you're still waiting.
It's the games they
Or-
play. It's the games they play. I honestly feel like it's just been to buy time for Jason Meade
Yeah.
because they know he's guilty. You don't shoot anybody from behind. There's no excuse to do anything to anyone from behind. If I'm on the streets right now and I hit somebody from behind, I'm at fault for that accident. If you run up and hit somebody from behind, you assaulted them. So it's just, there's no rhyme or reason to do anything to anyone when their back is turned. If someone's back is turned, they're not a threat to you.
Yeah.
So I just feel like it's the games they play. Not in politics, I feel like they don't realize in every profession, in every setting, whether it be in a school, in a church, in a law firm, wherever, there's good and there's bad people. We have good and bad teachers. We have good and bad lawyers. We have good and bad preachers and priests. We have good and bad everywhere. For some reason, they're not enlightened to the fact that on these forces, there's good and there's bad cops. And instead of trying to weed out the bad ones, they try to protect them.
Yeah. Do you think that qualified immunity where cops essentially aren't held responsible for their actions?
Qualified
helps?
immunity is the reason why they do what they do, because they know they're backed. They know they're backed.
Yeah.
They know it. So
Yeah. So that's one of the things I'm assuming that you would like to see change. We know that the laws would have to change for that to happen, but you being the mother of a murdered son who was murdered by a police officer, I'm going to assume that's probably at the top of your list of things that you would like to see change.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because they take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there other things that you wish, obviously, you wish you weren't in the situation at all, but are there other things that throughout this process that you've learned about kind of how the system works that you want to see different for, unfortunately, the next person who might be in this type of situation?
Yeah, the main thing is accountability on all ends. They don't hold them, and they need to be, to me, they need to be held at a higher standard because
Yeah.
you took an oath.
Mm-hmm.
You took an oath to protect and serve. You're not the judge, you're not the jury, you're not the executioner. You don't get the right to just take somebody's life because that's what you feel that day. And they need to be held to a higher standard because of the position that they're in. And then the counties, the cities, they need to take accountability. When you have an officer that's done wrong, instead of trying to hide it and cover it up and drag the family, there needs to be accountability.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that like there have been some other families, right? Like who have received settlements from the city and from maybe even the county in the wake of their family members being brutalized or murdered. But in your situation, Jason Meade is going to trial before you all can even have a civil case happen.
Yeah.
How do you like how does that kind of affect your everyday? How do you feel about that kind of like sequence of events?
Again, accountability. They're not honest enough or real enough, or they just won't stand accountable for their officers' actions. They hired him. You hired him knowing that he was still too immature for the job because it says it in his hiring packet. You allowed him to go out on a SWAT team
Because he had been disciplined, right?
several
Prior
times
to.
prior to.
Okay.
And in the motions hearing we just had, I'm learning that he had 8 excessive force charges against him from 2018 to 2020
Okay.
when he murdered Casey. He was on a 4.5 no contact with inmate order before he was even put on a SWAT team. So you have to.
So did he have any kind of disciplinary actions besides that being in his file? You're saying he was, I mean, obviously he was still out on the streets
Well, I believe
on
that
the
he was
SWAT
on a.
team.
If I remember correctly, it's been so long, but if I remember correctly, when he was on a 4.5 no contact with inmate order, he was put on a desk job
Okay.
to. Um,
But in 2020, he was on the SWAT
on
team and was
2020, he was
able
on the
to
SWAT team.
encounter
Casey.
Casey.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he shouldn't have been.
What does Jason Meade, why does he say he ever even
Jason
we
Meade
don't even
hasn't
think he
talked.
talked to Casey, right?
I,
What was the reason he even was engaging at all with him? What does he say?
Jason Meade hasn't talked.
Okay.
Jason Meade hasn't said anything. There's lies, of course, that's being told in the courtroom, but we haven't heard anything from Jason Meade since he murdered Casey.
Can you
This
talk about Casey's personality?
Casey was just everything. Like, he was fun. He was a jokester. He pulled a prank on me probably every day of his life. Outgoing, just full. Casey was full of life. He loved his siblings. Like, he was like an old soul. Like, he wasn't a youngin' that was in the streets. He didn't do clubbing. He didn't do hanging out. He had friends, but not friends he was gonna go hang out on the block with or be in the clubs. But I think he been to a bar one time his whole life, and that's because my brother took him to the strip club when he turned 21. And he had the time of his life. Let me tell you, he called me like, "Mama." But he just was like a working man. Like, he was very self-taught, very, very self-taught. If he wanted to know something or know how to do something, he would study and study and study and learn it. And then you would just see him take off in it.
Yeah.
Like,
I know that when he was murdered, there were several of his teachers that came out and talked about the kind of kid Casey was in class, the kind of student he was, and all of the things that you've shared, even just the videos and stuff. I think you get a good sense of the kind of person. And there's even pictures, I believe, of him with officers. I think he was on his motorcycle.
He was on his motorcycle,
Yeah.
and they were in my mom's neighborhood. He stopped and took a picture with him. Casey didn't have a reason to disrespect authority or not listen to authority. He did everything right. Like, he was that dude that he was going to do everything right because he was going to slap his license out. He was going to, like, he was just one of them. And if you wasn't
He was like a
doing
rule follower,
yeah,
it sound like.
yeah,
Okay.
maybe not all mine, but
yeah, not
but
yours,
yeah,
but like,
as far as the law goes,
we
yes.
know all, I mean, not our parents,
Yeah, not the parents. But as far as doing things the right way, like, he was going to do it the right way.
Yeah.
Because you weren't going to have no reason to mess with him.
Right. And he had a conceal and carry
He did.
license.
He did. He was a boy. He was a real boy. Like, he loved motorcycles. He loved big trucks. He loved cars, and he loved guns. And jet skis too. Like, any like motorsport,
active type stuff. Yeah.
And so he wanted guns, and he studied them, and he learned, and then he got his license, and he bought his guns legally. All of his guns were legal, and they were registered.
Yeah, and so he wasn't going to do anything to put anybody. He knew that guns weren't toys. He wasn't going to do anything to put anybody
in danger.
Yeah. And like I said, from the things that you shared about him, and even from what he was doing that day, which was coming home from the dentist, which it can be like pulling teeth to get, no pun intended, to get people that young to go to the dentist. So he was coming home from a dentist appointment, and he went to get your family, right? Lunch.
I believe it was probably him and Baby D. Because I had called him and let him know Baby D, he couldn't go to school. That's when the height of COVID.
Yeah.
And
who's Baby D, so that the listeners know
my
who
son,
Baby
my
D.
little brother, his little brother.
How old was he?
He was 5 at the time.
5, okay.
And it was the height of COVID. So, if they had a sniffle, a half a cough, they couldn't go to the daycare.
Right.
And so I was dropping him off over to my mom's house. And Casey wasn't there. And I asked my mom, where's Casey at? And she was like, I don't know. He got up and took a shower, got dressed, and left. He don't tell me nothing because he said I tell everybody's business. So I said, okay, and I called Casey. And I was like, where you at? And he said, I'm at the dentist, mama. And I got to telling him about the police being in my mom's neighborhood. And the phone hung up. And he texted me like, my bag, mama, the dentist had her fingers in my mouth. Yeah. And I was just like, you good? Because I was on my way to work.
Right.
And that was at like 10:30 a.m. maybe.
So it was a regular day.
Yeah, and I think Baby D called me at 12:15.
So your 5-year-old called you. So how has Baby D been since Casey was murdered? Because he saw Casey's body.
Yeah.
And he saw something that no
5-year-old
kid should ever see.
At first he used to cry all the time and say that he could still hear the glass breaking in his ears. We would be riding down the street, but now I'm seeing it in his behavior.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
And I have to stop myself. I try not to punish him too much because I feel like it's just coming out in his behaviors. Like, he don't listen. He's real hyper. Like, I can't get him to calm down. He raps a lot. Like, he like to rap, but his raps are about murder. And so I'm just like, no, like, we got to change the trajectory or the road you're going down. So I try to keep him busy. Like, he plays football. Right now we're playing basketball. But it's his behaviors. Like, I have to tell myself, like, he's suffering. Because Casey was his favorite person. They were like this. Yeah. Like, he was Casey's favorite person.
Mhm.
and he was Casey's favorite person. Like they were. You would have thought he was Casey's son. Casey and I
Yeah.
have had a few arguments about baby he not being his child.
Mhm.
So I think now that the older he's getting,
He knows.
it comes out in different ways. Yeah,
Mhm.
he's mad at me right now because I won't let him go to trial.
Yeah. Yeah.
He wants to be there, but I just don't feel like. I feel like he's already been traumatized enough
Yeah.
with being there when it happened. So
Yeah.
I don't want to put those images in his head. I don't want the words that he's going to hear to be. I just don't feel like he
Yeah.
should. He
I'm
wanted to
sorry that you
testify
even
though.
have to think about that. He wanted to testify.
He just asked me last couple weeks ago. He was like, "Well, why they not using me? Why can't I testify?" And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, I could tell you everything that happened. He was like, I was in the living room and I was playing with my toys. And
Yeah.
he just started telling the whole story. And like, it's crazy that he remembers, and he remembers it like precisely. He remembers. And
Does he talk about, does he like bring it up without anybody
mm,
prompting him? And then does he talk about just his feelings in general about it?
he just said yesterday, I think, when I picked him up from school, he was like, Mom, I'm missing Casey bad.
Yeah.
And then like that song, Cheddar made a song. I don't know if you heard it, a song about Casey.
Yeah, I've
You
heard
heard
it.
it? Okay. So we used to listen to that in the mornings. But like one day he went to school and got in trouble. And when I asked him like, well, why did you do that? He was like, I was just upset. We listened to that song about Casey, so now I don't let him listen to that in the morning. And I feel bad, but it's just like I know probably what it, because I know what it did. When I listen, it makes me want to cry. So
Do you think he's angry about what happened to his brother?
absolutely,
Yeah. What
yeah.
about your other kids? How are
They
they dealing
just
with it?
hurt. They cry. I mean, like, it's hard, especially as a child. Like, it's hard for me as an adult to process it.
Yeah.
Like, it's really hard for the
Mm.
kids. You
Yeah.
know, I've dealt with them coming out the shower, stark naked, ran, jumping on my lap, crying. I've dealt with me being in the bathroom. They come jump on my lap while I'm sitting on the toilet crying. Like, it's been some real, and it's what they don't see.
Yeah.
Is what they don't see. Or my daughter calling me and like, Mom, you got to come get me from school. I can't do this today.
Do you
I
cry
know
when you're by yourself? Like, do you try not to
sometimes
cry in
I
front of
try
your
not to feel
kids?
it.
Yeah.
I don't like to feel it. I just feel like it hurts too bad. So like the feeling will take over the fight, and I've been in fight mode since I was on the scene. So
Oh, I can tell. And I want to tell you, you did that. Okay. Like, from the first day that I saw you, like, and then I saw you the other day and you walked up there and you did your whole speech and you had your suit on. And
and I don't
I
like
was like, oh,
transformers.
she is showing up in any situation to advocate and fight for her son.
Hmm.
And I mean, I think when situations like this happen, right, there's like one or two things that you can do. It's either like you shut down from the grief. Because I went through something really hard this year. It was like my whole life just turned upside down. And it would be like people would be talking to me and it would be like I wouldn't hear anything. It'd
Hmm.
be like wah wah wah, like the Charlie Brown sound.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, this is what grief is when you can be in a room full of people and you're just so sad that
Hmm.
nothing is getting through. So I would
Hmm.
go to the store, be shopping, and it'll be like a black screen or like a black cloud was
Hmm.
just, or is just some, because it just depends on the day, right? It's just
Hmm.
like over me. And there would be days where I would think about you and I would think about some of the other moms that I've had the chance to like talk to and get to know. And I would be like, this is what profound grief every day feels like. And this is like unbearable.
Hmm. Yeah, and
And
I
so,
got in a dark space for a while. Like it ain't been all peaches and cream. Like before Casey was murdered, I never drank. Like I would drink on occasion. You could buy me a fifth of Hennessy. I probably have it for 6 months to a year sitting on the counter because I worked all the time. I never drank, but I started drinking heavy. Like I was drinking a pint to a fifth of 1738 a day. By the time 3 o'clock roll around, I was drinking. And I was going to drink until I went to sleep. And I wasn't going to sleep till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I started running in and out the bars. I never go out. You'll never see me out. And I started running like it got crazy. And
You remember I saw you in the summertime
yeah,
and you were telling me about this. And so I saw you and then all the stuff happened with me and I wanted to drink. And I remember what you said to me.
I almost lost everything because I didn't care. I quit my job. I was like, I just ain't working no more. They're like, you're not. I'm not working. I don't care. Like my rent was like 3 or 4 months, but like it got bad. Like I didn't care, and I didn't care. And sometimes I would wake up, and if I had a shot on my nightstand, well, not. I slept on the couch. I've slept on my couch since Casey was murdered up until November of 2023.
Why do you sleep on the couch?
I think because they shot my house up after Casey got murdered, and
Who is they?
I don't know who. I feel like it had something to do with him, though. I didn't have any enemies. I moved into the house that I was in when Casey was murdered on October 1st of 2020. Casey was murdered December 4th. Nobody even knew where I lived yet. I worked 2 jobs. I worked third shift and I worked first shift. I didn't barely had time to wash my butt, let alone have company and hang
Yeah.
out. Like,
Yeah.
so I think it was more or less, you
You
got
think
me
if
the
you
first
sleep on the
time,
couch,
you won't
like
get me
you,
next time.
yeah, and you can protect your kids.
Yeah. Because the bullet was like this close to hitting my other son when it came through my house.
Yeah.
So, but if I had a shot that I had poured and fell asleep drinking, sometimes if I got up in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, if it was one of them days where I was feeling it and didn't feel like feeling the day, I would take that shot.
Yeah.
It got out of control.
Yeah.
So,
Do you have a history of that? Like in your family, people dealing
yes,
with it?
my
Yeah.
grandmother was an alcoholic. My uncle was an alcoholic. My auntie was an alcoholic. And my father was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And that's what made me really like, well, there was an altercation, there was an incident that happened. I told you about that. And then it was just like, I looked at myself in the mirror one day like, you slipping.
Yeah.
Like, you slipping. You're not going to be able to continue this race going down the path you going. Like, you're slipping. Like, you got to leave it alone. And it's just like, then I'm like, I'm turning into my dad, and I didn't like it. Because I was
Yeah.
mean, too. Like, I wanted to
Yeah.
fight
Yeah.
everything and everybody. I didn't care.
Because this was your way of
Coping.
dealing with,
Dealing.
right? Because when you drink, it's like, okay, I don't have to
I
feel
don't have to
any of
feel.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have to feel any of this.
And then it was in that downtime
Yeah, it's a
where,
coping
yeah,
strategy.
so it was, and I just, remember, I just told myself I can't do this no more. Like, I
Yeah.
got to let it go. So I think it's been like 9 or 10 months, May 2nd, since I drank.
I'm so proud of you.
And I won't drink.
It's hard to break those
Yeah.
that family stuff. That was what it was for me. I was like, I know what I've seen. And I can't be that person, right? Like I got to figure out how to like, this is really hard, but like, how do I deal with this? So what
No.
did you do? Like, what do you do instead of drinking?
Well, I started smoking. Well, I've been smoking. I was smoking from the time I was 14.
Yeah.
But after I quit drinking, I started smoking heavy.
Okay.
So it went from the alcohol to weed smoke. And I was smoking, like literally over a quarter a day. Like
Yeah.
literally, I would probably spend like $80 a day smoking weed. And I just like, so in July, my birthday time, I said I was going to quit smoking on August 1st. And I just heard God keep telling me, you need a clear mind. You need a clear mind. God been talking to me this whole time. And quit drinking, quit smoking, stay out the bars, stay away from a certain somebody I was around, well, 2 certain people I was around. And I just kept hearing it and hearing it and hearing it. But you know, when you're in your SHIT, you're not caring about what
You
you're
can
hearing.
cuss if you want to.
So I said, okay, I'm going to stop smoking August 1st. And then it was just like, I didn't even try. I didn't try. And then finally in September, I was just like, I just kept hearing, you need a clear mind. You cannot get to where you need to be if you're stuck here. So it was September 11th. I had a half a blunt at home. And I was coming home from work. It was about midnight. And I was like, am I going to go get a bag? But I don't like to go to the ATM at nighttime by myself.
Same.
Yeah, I don't go to the
Same.
ATM at night by myself. So I was like, nah, but I only got a half a blunt. But I knew when I woke up, it was like, wake up and roll up. Like, literally. I'm not doing nothing until I roll. Like, literally, I want to get high as soon as I wake up so I ain't got to feel it.
Yeah.
And I just said, you know what? I got the half a blunt at home. When I get there, I'm going to smoke it. I told God, I said, you get me through the first 24 hours, and I'm done with it. I just need to get through the first 24 hours, and I'm done.
Yeah.
That was September 11th. I haven't smoked since. I smoked a half a blunt, I did. But,
You haven't since.
and I'm cool
So
for
what?
real.
Who's is it? Is it community getting you through this? Is it your family? Like, now that you're not doing that stuff, what are the
It's
things that's
God. I
getting you?
just pray. I pray. I pray a
Yeah.
lot. I've
I
been
know you hold a
fasting.
prayer. Like, is it
Yeah,
a
it's
weekly or
yep. It's
monthly?
at 7 p.m. tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, every Monday night I hold a prayer call, and I just pray. I pray a lot. I've been fasting. 2 weeks was yesterday, so I've been on my little fasting journey and Sunday because I said I was gonna fast going into the trial.
Yeah.
Nah, it's just my own willpower. Like a lot of people be like, "Oh, you didn't do rehab. Rehab for what?" It's mind over matter. Like if I make something up in my mind, then that's what it is, and I'm not going against it. So it's just like I'm just done. And everybody around me smokes and drinks. Like
Yeah.
everybody around me smokes and drinks, but it don't even bother me.
I think you know what your assignment is. And I think that, like I said, from the first day that I saw you, it was clear, like, you know, that you knew what you had to do to really like ride for your son. And I don't even know if you know what you just did even here. Cause like black people, we don't talk about how me and you just talked about all of the stuff that happens in our communities that affects us, which then like affects, this is like so much bigger than just Casey, right? Like this is systemic issues that cause things like this to happen, and then how they affect us and affect our families and like affect your son, you know, getting in trouble at school and all of these things. They don't happen in a vacuum. And so I just really appreciate you even talking and being vulnerable about that piece, because that is a big piece of like everybody sees you on the news. They see you, you know, doing all of this advocacy, but they don't see what has happened to the family
Behind closed doors.
behind closed doors.
And it's important. To me, it's like it's important because we're fighting for change, right?
Yeah.
So they need to understand what really happens, what how detrimental this is to the families, what they really go through, how hard it is on the mothers, the siblings, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles. My sister, she doesn't even, when she's in a setting, because her and my son were very close. And when she's in a setting, she's like, if I'm around family and I'm laughing in this family, it's cool. But if I go somewhere else, like, I don't want to laugh and smile. I feel bad because Casey's not here to laugh and smile. So it's like, she doesn't even know how to, she has to learn how to laugh and smile again just because, it's
You guys have to learn how to be happy again.
yeah. And does that ever really happen? Like, especially
Yeah.
for me, like, I was his mother. So there's a piece of me that's always going to be missing. Like, they didn't have to tell me Casey was dead. On my way to the scene, I knew Casey was dead.
Did you feel it?
I felt it. I knew he was gone. Casey texted me, I think I told you that morning, at 4:04 a.m., and I can show you the text message. I still got all his messages. And he said, I love you, with a whole bunch of emojis behind it. I worked nights then, third shift, so I didn't see it till like 5 o'clock, but I thought I forgot to leave a plate for him at my house because he got off work at 2 o'clock in the morning, and my house was in between his job and home. So I'd have to leave this or that for him. When he got off work, I thought I forgot to leave something. But that's all the text message said was, I love you, with a whole bunch of emojis. So when I went to text him back, I had a gut feeling then that something wasn't right. I said it. I said something about to happen to my son.
Did you have that feeling all day before that happened?
If I'm being very transparent, honest with you, the Lord had been telling me I was going to lose a child. I've been feeling it. And honestly, I kept seeing baby D. And I'm like, no, God, no. And I kept fighting it like, no, that's not going to happen. No. But, and then when I got that text message from Casey that morning, it was like, okay, let me take you back. My friend's son died, sheesh, 10 years ago,
Okay.
9 or 10 years ago. When he died, I was by her side for his whole funeral and everything. But I kept feeling like I was going to go through this. It's been crazy. So that morning, I felt like something's going to happen to my son. When I got that text message, I texted him back like, I love you too, son, with a whole bunch of hearts. I had the feeling for about 45 minutes, and I finally shook it. And then it's going to sound crazy, but I seen 3 black crows in a yard. And I was like, damn, they say that means death. Why do I feel like death is upon me? This was that morning. And then I seen him and his compadres surrounded around my mom's house. And my first thought was to call Casey.
And you did?
And I did.
Yeah.
And so when I got the phone call and seen that it was baby D, my heart stopped.
You
I
know.
knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
And when I answered, he was screaming. Like, he was screaming hysterically. I couldn't understand him. I hung up on him. He called me back. He was still so hysterical. I'm like, baby D, I do not know what you're saying. So I hung up on him. I called my daughter because she was there. And she told me Casey just been shot. I'm like, who would shoot Casey? So I ran out of because I was at my second job at this time. I flew out of there. I think I started screaming like, my son just got shot. I got to go. But I worked in Tangier. My second job, I worked at UGG. So I was all the way in Tangier.
Okay. Yeah. So you.
No, I made it to my mom's house in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I did 120 on that highway. It wasn't no stopping me. But I felt it. I knew he was gone. So when I pulled up on the scene, it was never, before I got the death notification, it was never, y'all shot my son. It was y'all murdered my son. Because I went crazy.
How long did it take them to tell, like the police, how long did it take them to tell you?
When I got there, I was probably there for about 10 or... The police were ignorant. They was calling me B words and arguing with me, pointing their guns at me. They were ignorant. They wouldn't let the family get in. It was...
They pointed guns at you.
Yeah.
And
I told him
who
to shoot
else?
me. Yeah. I told him to shoot me. But there was a chief or something there. He acted like he had some common sense, some decency. And I seen him flag my sister over to him because they wouldn't even tell me what hospital they took Casey to. And I seen him flag my sister over to him, and my sister walked over to him, and I was just watching her.
Yeah.
And when she turned around, she was shaking her head, and I just was like, no. And at that point I blacked out, but I did see on the news, like I fell to the ground, like I let out a curling scream, I guess, like. But I do remember looking at my sister in her eyes and she was shaking her head and I just I didn't want to hear it. I did. Because even though I knew he was gone, I was still praying.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want the confirmation. And then I remember they came out with a news post and it said a fugitive had been shot. I said, oh no, they didn't. And I
They said somebody was waving a gun. That's what the first
and then they was looking for a guy and he was wanted on warrants or something. I said, oh no, they won't, not mine. And it was just something in me ignited at that very, like I literally remember standing right there in the door of my car on the scene and started like, no, this is my son. He was not a fugitive. He did not have no warrants for his arrest. I remember fighting like that moment.
Yeah. From the very beginning, because I remember seeing that in the paper and thinking to myself, well, how do they know what happened if both parties aren't there to be able to, like, why is it just the police department that's able to say this is what happened and then they're able to publish this in the paper as truth?
And they had to go back on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They had to go back on it
Yeah.
because they were lying. Um, but yeah,
You did
crazy
what you
day.
needed to do to to make sure that the truth was out
Yeah, but I
there.
told my family we gotta push it. Like there
Yeah.
was no body cameras, there were no eyewitnesses, so
So still
we
to
had to
this
push
day
it.
there's no nothing, no
There's just the
doorbell
aftermath.
cameras, no nothing. It's
No,
just
it's just
his word.
yeah, and
Jason
it's
Meade's word.
the doorbell. I mean the no, there was no cameras
Yeah. And no body
and no
cameras
body cameras.
because
No,
the department did not have body
at the
cameras
time they weren't
at the
made to
time.
run. No, they
They
are
have body
now.
cameras now.
Yeah,
And that's because of
Casey.
y'all
Yeah,
pressing
but
the yeah.
so we just contacted everybody. Like I was tagging everybody to shade room because we had the pictures of the keys in the door. We had the
Hmm.
pictures of his subs on the ground. We had the bullet holes because at first we was thinking it was 3 shots because that's what we seen in the screen door. We knew the bullet holes was in his back because my mom seen it. She tells him on 911 that. So we were thinking he was only shot 3 times at first because we seen the 3 bullet holes in the screen door. We didn't know that they had actually blew out all the glass or Chasing Me had blew out all the glass with the other shots. Um, but we knew he was shot in the back. And we knew they were all through the screen door. And so we pushed it. Like I tagged the shade room, tag. Then I hired Sean, I think the day after.
Why'd you decide to hire?
Sean,
Yeah.
y'all want me to be honest? Because
Yeah.
I was I was given 2 attorney names. I was given Ben Crump
Okay.
and I was given Sean Walton. And everybody's like, go with Ben Crump, go with Ben Crump. Like a lot of people had told me Ben Crump. And I called Ben Crump and I called Sean. I called both of them.
Yeah.
Ben Crump got back to me faster than Sean did, I think. And I'm telling him, I mean, my son hasn't been dead for 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling him what happened to my son. And I mean, in a maybe 2 to 3 minute conversation, he interrupted me at least 5 times. I need change
Mm.
for a 5. I'm going to park here. Like, are you hearing me? I'm telling you, my
Yeah.
son is dead and what happened to him. I mean, not, no, excuse me. And I hung up on him
Mm.
because it was just a natural instinct that I knew I needed somebody that would have a heart because it wasn't about the money for me. Like, I didn't care about that. I wanted charges first.
Right.
And so I needed somebody that I knew would fight for Casey, that
Yeah.
stand for Casey. And so I talked to Sean, and he made me an appointment to come into his office. It wasn't like no over the phone type.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, come in and talk to me." And we sat down and talked, and it was just like we clicked. Like I'm like, "This is him." Like we're going. Trust me, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't put him through the ringer, but and I told him I didn't want to file a civil lawsuit. Like
Yeah.
I wanted charges first. I
Yeah.
never felt like I never wanted them to feel like they could shut me up
With money.
with money
Yeah.
because it wasn't about that. It was
Yeah.
about obtaining accountability for Casey because he didn't deserve what Jason Meade did to him.
Yeah.
So I needed somebody that had the heart to fight, that's heart was in it, and that would be invested in winning for Casey. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I just knew Sean was it, like
Yeah.
from the first time. So I signed a
Yeah.
contract. I think with him the day I said, yeah, the day I sat down with him. You know,
Well, and do you think that it helps to have somebody who kind of like knows the landscape, knows Columbus, like is not somebody from necessarily the outside, but they understand kind of what's been going on in the city for a long time as it
absolutely,
relates to police violence.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about just how can well first I want to ask how can the community be helpful now that the trial is coming up? Like, what do you want?
I
What
just
can people
want
do?
to, I just want to see him stand up. Stand up like you did when we was at the rallies when Casey was first murdered. Come out in numbers, support, show them we're tired.
Hmm.
Since Casey was murdered, there's been 15 other,
How many?
15 others murdered by the police here in Columbus, Ohio. 15 in 3 years. You know,
Wow.
we need people. We're tired.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, I feel like people don't really care or aren't really invested because it didn't happen to you. But
Yeah.
it could.
Mhm.
And as we can see, they don't have to be out doing nothing wrong. They don't have to be in the streets. They don't have to be a criminal.
Mhm.
And that's not right either. But you can say, oh well, my child is not out doing this, and my child wasn't either.
Yeah.
And he was shot 6 times in his back as he entered his home.
Right.
So we just need Columbus to stand up, to show them we're tired.
Yeah.
We're tired of burying our kids. We're tired of seeing these mothers' tears. We're tired of getting out here saying the same thing over and over and over again. I feel like at times it's just falling on deaf ears.
Yeah. How do you feel like county and city officials have shown up in this?
We have one city official, county, city, she's city, and she has shown up greatly for Casey in many
Do you want to say
ways.
who that person is?
Miss Favor,
Okay.
Miss Shayla Favor.
Councilwoman Shayla
Huh?
Favor. Councilwoman Shayla
Yep,
Favor.
Councilwoman Shayla Favor. And from the beginning, she's never wavered. She's never swayed. She's taken her stance that she stands with the family. Um, she is part founder in the Casey Goodson Jr. Pathways to Purpose trucking program.
Right.
Um, she goes to war for Casey.
Yeah.
We need more officials like that. There's others that have shown up here, shown up there. There's others that's shown up to the funeral and you haven't seen them since. Haven't
Mm.
heard from them since.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah. And Councilwoman Favor is actually running for prosecutor, which is prosecutor's race primaries coming up in the beginning of March.
mhm.
How has that been? Like, how has a county prosecutor kind of been involved at all with what's going on with Casey's case? And why is it like, why do you feel like, or do you feel like it's important for like our listeners to understand how important the prosecutor's race is?
The prosecutor has complete control over Casey's criminal case and the civil case. You know, in our case, it took 6 months to get special prosecutors assigned to Casey's case, which delayed it even longer. Because once the
Yeah.
prosecutors got assigned, then they had to do their homework on the case. They had to study the case. They had to, do everything that they needed to do in order to even present the case to the grand jury.
Mm-hmm.
So had they would have made the decision in a timely fashion, then Casey's criminal case wouldn't have been delayed so long.
Yeah. So you
Um,
think that there's some expediency, speed issues in the prosecutor's
Absolutely.
office
It's a lot
right
of
now?
games that's played
Yeah. Yeah.
because they don't want to be the one to prosecute when
Right.
they should.
Mm-hmm.
Right is right, wrong is wrong.
Mm-hmm. You think that they don't want to be the ones to prosecute because they don't want to have to prosecute a police officer?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's their own.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as his civil case goes, they have complete control over that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the civil lawsuit was filed the day the indictment came down, December 2nd, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a stay on it since.
Okay.
And that comes from the prosecutor's office.
Okay.
And it's mainly, in a nutshell, that if Jason Meade will have to testify in a civil trial, then he could possibly incriminate himself going into a criminal trial.
Okay.
Well, if Jason Meade would have never pulled a trigger and shot an innocent black man 6 times in his back, he
Right.
wouldn't have to worry about incriminating himself.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
it's like, what's fair to they feel like they're doing what's fair to the officer, but what about what's fair to the family that didn't ask for this? What about what's fair to Casey?
yeah, do you feel like Jason Meade is getting more consideration in this than your son who was murdered.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. From day one. He
Yeah.
was allowed to retire. First, he was put on a paid leave. Let's start there.
Right.
He was never fired,
Right.
and he should have been fired,
Right.
but he was never fired. He was put on a paid leave until July 2nd of 2021 when they allowed him to retire on disability. I'm just trying to figure out what the disability could have been because before he murdered Casey out of his own mouth, he loved his job.
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
hunts people for a living. He loves his job. Is
Yeah.
what he said out his own mouth. You wasn't disabled the day you shot Casey.
Right.
So what was a disability in July? And
Right.
I'm curious, was it a mental disability? Because if it was, it's your fault. You murdered a man. What about
Mm.
the
Yeah.
mental health of Casey's family, of his grandmother that witnessed the murder, of his uncle that witnessed the murder and cleaned up the murder scene, of his sister that witnessed the murder, of his little brother that witnessed the murder, and there was like 3 or 4 other kids, my niece that witnessed the murder, and then I think there were three other children underage, 2 3-year-olds and a 9-year-old at the time, 10-year-old.
So I'm sorry, this is like really granular, but I just have to ask you. So you said that somebody in your family had to clean up the murder
My
scene.
brother did.
So nobody from the county comes in and at least assists with any of that is what you're telling me.
My
Which is
brother did.
that's wild to me.
My
I'm
brother
sorry.
cleaned up all the blood off of my mother's kitchen floor. My brother and my little cousin, I believe. And I believe my attorney was out there at the time, too.
Is there any was there anything that like I guess county or city offers like a family when something like this happens? Or
No,
is it just kind of like you're on your own?
you're on your own.
That's your experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they didn't send, they said that it was in sanitary or something for my brother to have cleaned up the scene, but y'all didn't send nobody out to clean it up.
Hmm.
No, they didn't. My brother cleaned that scene up.
Yeah.
He cleaned up all cases blood off the floor.
I'm sorry, Tamala.
They didn't even do what they were supposed to do and contact the Bureau of Criminal Investigation until 3 days later. I feel like because they were trying to cover it up.
Mm.
But once they had Casey's body in the morgue and realized he had been shot 6 times,
Yeah.
then they tried.
How long did it take you all to get that
His body,
information about the
oh, how many times he had been shot. I think we had our own independent. Okay, now this is taking me back. Okay, we had our own independent pathologist, and I believe he told us.
Okay.
But then Dr. Ortiz, the pathologist that performed the autopsy, and some city and state officials, I believe, sat down with me on a Zoom call, and they told me.
So y'all felt it was important to have an independent person examine
Absolutely,
Casey's body so that you
absolutely,
could
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And so they told me that he was shot 6 times because at the time I wasn't getting a coroner's report because the toxicology test wouldn't be back for a while. It takes a while. So I was going to release a picture of his back just to show the world what they did to him. I had Sean crop. I didn't want to see his face. So I
Yeah.
had Sean crop his face out, like just to show me the wounded area, which that pissed me off because he was laying on a cold bed on black trash bags and his arm was hanging off the bed or still, whatever they had him on. But once I seen the pictures of his back, I wouldn't release it because I have kids. I have other kids.
Yeah.
And that image, I just seen one image. All I seen was one.
Are you
And
gonna have to see that stuff?
in court,
All of those things
yeah.
in court? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not ready for. That's the part I'm not ready for.
I
But
know.
I feel like my natural reaction to it is important.
Yeah.
So it's just like I tell God, like, just give me the strength
To get through that part.
to get through it, because I know I got to go through it. And whatever I have to do to get accountability for Casey, I just got to go through it. Because imagine my pain of seeing it, but imagine his pain of feeling it. So if he had to go through the pain of feeling it, I can at least endure the pain of seeing it so that I can ensure that he gets his accountability. So
Yeah.
it's just something I got to do.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for it. You would think that I'll be ready for it by now, but that's going to be the
I
hard
don't think
part.
you can ever be ready for that, Tamala.
But that's it. Just the going through to get
Getting to the other side.
to the victory.
Yeah. How do can we, reach out to, I, I've been thinking about just kind of the sequence of events, right? Like his criminal trial and the outcome of the criminal trial. And then, like, how can the community advocate for y'all with the civil part of the trials? I mean, do we call the office and say, hey, make sure that you're considering the family and do the right thing? Like, what can we do?
I'm be honest with you. That's probably a question for Sean because I kind of I've stayed away from the civil part a lot. Like I've
Yeah.
allowed Sean to handle that. If if he has a question for me or needs to know something,
I told him,
he'll
can
ask.
we? I told him he might have to be on camera for a second because that's the one question that I do have is what can we do as far as that part, the civil part, like how can the community be helpful in pushing for accountability on that piece? Like I know we can come to court, folks have been writing for you like since this happened, but on that piece, what do we do there? That's my question. And maybe I already answered the question. Like it's just showing up and letting them know that we're watching and that we haven't forgotten. We
Right.
haven't forgotten your family and we haven't forgotten Casey. How can people support on the civil end with the county? Is that calling? What do we need
Yeah,
to
you
do?
can call the board of commissioners and the prosecutors and push no matter and push for let them know that you guys are pushing for the civil. No matter what happens in the criminal,
Yeah.
they should still take care of the family
Yeah.
civilly
Yeah.
on the civil end.
Yeah. Tamala, what do you think is the biggest thing that you want people to know? I know we talked about Casey's personality, but what is something that you want people to know about Casey? Like, what's the thing that you don't ever want forgotten about him?
He was just a great kid. Like there's not one specific thing. Like that was my rider. He was my rider. When I had them twins early, he did every day in the NICU with me. He was there when they was born. He was right there. I told the nurse had checked me. I was at like I don't know 7 centimeters. Literally, she walked out the room, and like 2 minutes later, I'm like, oh, these babies is about to come. And he was like, Mom, she just checked you. She said you still had a couple hours. I said, no, no, no. These babies are coming. Somebody better get so he pressed the button and she came back in. I was like, hey, these babies is about to come. Like, I need to push like now. She was like, I just checked you. You were only 7 minutes. I said, I don't care what I was.
I'm telling you,
I'm
man.
telling you, these babies are coming.
I don't know if you need
And she was
what you
trying to argue with me. My son was like, can you just listen to her? She is a pro at this. The babies are coming. If she said, and she checked me and she's like, oh my God, the baby's crowning. We got to get you, because they didn't know if they would have to do an emergency C-section or not. And she was like, we got to get you to the OR. Like, so it was just like, he was my rider. Like, and my mom went back with me when I delivered, but Casey stayed in the room that I was in. And when I got back in the room, he was right there. And every single day at the NICU, he'd be like, Mama, it's time. You ready? It's almost time. Because I would go, my dad, I gave birth to the twins Saturday at 1:59 a.m. and 2:08 a.m. and they came 2 months early. I didn't have time to be off work.
Right.
I didn't have time to be off work. It was just Christmas time. They had already took all my money. I didn't have time to be off work. So I was back at work Monday morning at 2 a.m.
You
And
had your
they,
babies on Saturday.
yeah, and
And
I was back
you
at work on Monday. Yes, ma'am.
that's a whole nother
Yes, ma'am. And so,
that's a whole nother episode. Cause you
so
shouldn't have been back at work.
I
We
was.
need better maternity care in this country. But go
So yeah,
ahead.
yeah, I was. And so I would go to work. I worked like 1 to 7 in the morning, so 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. And I would get off work and I would get the kids ready for school. I'd take them to school. I'd be at the hospital by 9. I would sit at the hospital from like 9 to um, noon or 1 with the babies and pump breast milk and do all that stuff. And then I would go home. I would cook dinner. I would go get the kids from school, get them home, get them settled. And then every night at 6 p.m., me and Casey would go back to the NICU from 6 to 9 or 6 to 10. Like, he was so hands-on. He would help me pump milk. He helped me do everything. Like the Casey was my rider.
How old were the babies when Casey was murdered?
24 days away from turning 1.
So you're telling me that you went from having premature babies and having to go straight back to work to sort of y'all two, it sounds like, got and your other family members kind of got in the rhythm with the babies. And then a couple months later,
That's why he stayed home. I still feel that guilt. Because Casey had just came home that Christmas 2019. He was on the road in California driving cross country for Walmart. He had just came home like 2 days before Christmas in 2019. The twins was due on Baby D's birthday, February 20th, but they were born December 28th. They said they would be in the NICU for the whole 8 weeks. Them babies did 2 weeks in the NICU. Wasn't nothing wrong with them. They was 4 pounds apiece. They was ready. And so Casey and my mom, I would stay at my mom's, so they would take turns watching the babies at night because I was working. I could not work.
right?
And then Casey would leave, but then he'd be calling me like, "Mom, pick me up," because he drove for U.S. Express in Springfield. He'd be like, "Pick me up," and then he would
Yeah,
leave, and then he would come back. He'd do a little job and come back, and then finally on his birthday that year, he like, "I'm just gonna stay home with you
yeah,
and the babies,"
yeah.
and then he got a job here, and then he got murdered, literally.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah.
Tamala, I don't know, for me to everybody else who watches this, I'm sorry. Because as I think about that long term trajectory, you've been going.
And I
And
won't stop.
then this happens and you got to go, go, go. So I wish rest for you because you deserve it.
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming. It's
Yeah.
coming. I tell everybody I just gotta do the work. God put it in front of me. I just gotta do the work. You know, I don't feel like God put any more on me than I can bear,
Mm.
which at times it seems unbearable because like now, like I work, I take care of the kids at home. I'm a single mom, so I get them up in the mornings. I'm cooking breakfast. I'm doing hair. I'm getting everybody off at school. I'm working. I'm taking everybody to school, picking everybody up from school, going back to work. I cooked dinner at 11 o'clock this morning because I knew I had this tonight, and I'm fighting for Casey. So, but it's
Yeah.
just like I just hear God be obedient, be obedient, be obedient, lead in love, lead in light,
Yeah.
like your victory coming.
I want to ask you this too. How can we support your family, like monetarily? Like, what do you guys have? Like, that's a lot. That's a lot. So I want to know. Because I know you now. And I know you are, none of us are superwoman. None of us. I hate when people say that about black women. Like we're not. We are.
No, I'm my
We just
day.
be out here fighting for our lives, and
Yeah,
we just able to make it every day.
yeah, every day.
So I want to ask you, like, too. Do you guys have do you have a GoFundMe? Like, how do
There's a
we support
GoFundMe.
y'all? Okay, so can I find? I will post the link.
It is a
Unless
GoFundMe. I don't even know if I got the link. Well, it's a GoFundMe. It's been up since he was murdered. And I
Okay.
know they got one going around now for trial support.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that link is or whatever,
Okay.
but there is a GoFundMe.
Okay. Well, y'all, I want us to continue to support Casey's family, because this is a difficult time, and I want us to do that. So we're gonna post the link to the GoFundMe so that we can continue to support the family. Um, and yeah,
It's coming.
yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming up here and talking to me. I appreciate all the just times that you have taken out to just have a conversation with me. And half the time, we don't even talk about Casey. We're just talking about life.
Hmm.
And I just feel like you are just such. I hate that this happened to you, but I have seen like you're just blossoming into just seeing you show up in this moment. There's just so much ahead for you and for your family. And I just appreciate you coming up here and talking to me and just like how you continue to show up for so many of us, because it is really like, it's so inspiring.
Thank you. You know, and
And
I say it all the time, and I'm gonna say it again. Like, it's on us, right? Like when they take our babies, it's on us because they'll let our baby's name die with the baby. So it's on us. It's on you. Like, no matter how I feel, no matter if I want to do it, don't want to do it, no matter if I want to be in a space, no matter if I want to be around people, I cannot let his name die. And then Casey didn't have any kids, so he doesn't leave behind a legacy. So it's on me to build his legacy. And that's what I'm doing. And that's what I will continue to do.
well, you did that. So I don't have any flowers, but if I did, I would be giving them all to you because you deserve them all.
Yeah.
And
Thank you, baby.